The video. We'll call to order the Governance Committee meeting of the Dormitory Authority, and the meeting going on in the Albany office and the New York office. First item on the agenda, the minutes from the last Governance Committee meeting of October 9th, 2018, which has been distributed. Are there any comments? Is there a motion to accept them as circulated?
So moved.
We've got your second. Paul was beat you to.
Okay.
All right.
I
All
can be
those in
second.
favor, aye.
Aye.
Approved. Now we'll go into the annual review of the various things that are required by law, charter, governance principles, mission statements, bylaws. I'm going to turn that over to Mike Cusack, who will take us through it.
Thank you, Mr.
This
Chairman.
This too has been distributed in advance.
That is correct. In the end, we'll use the agenda, the board book, and the materials behind it as a guide. The annual review items can be broken down into two general groups: 4 corporate governance items that require annual review, and 4 operational policies and procedures that also require annual review. From a governance standpoint, the Governance Committee will today look at the Governance Committee Charter as well as the Governance Committee Principles. They're the first 2 items. Number 3, the mission statement and performance measures, which include the metrics to quantify performance goals. And 4th, the DASNY corporate bylaws. We'll take that group first. With respect to the Governance Charter, staff has completed a review of this item and is not recommending any changes. So we defer to the Governance Committee for any comments, but for present purposes, no changes recommended to the charter.
Anybody make any suggested changes or have inquiries? Michael? No, let's go to the next agenda.
Thank you. Staff is, with respect to the governance principles, which are included in the packet, staff is proposing minor clarifying changes to the governance principles, in particular Section 3, subdivisions E, F, and G, which make reference to the Audit Committee, the Governance Committee, and the Finance Committee. In reviewing these items, and I have to give credit to Kim, she noticed that they were not described consistently with their charters, and so made the suggested language changes here, which we've reviewed and recommended. In very general terms, it aligns with the wording for E, F, and G align now with the charter for each committee.
Any questions on this?
No, sir.
Next, please.
Okay, so for that item, if we're okay, then are we going to decide to recommend this to the full board?
I thought we'd just recommend the
Oh,
whole group.
we'll do it last.
Do it last. Let's get through.
Got it. Understood. Third item is the mission statement and performance measures, which include, again, the metrics to quantify performance goals. Staff has conducted a review of this information and is recommending no changes at this time. So we'll defer to the Governance Committee for further discussion.
Anybody have any suggested changes? Okay, let's move to the next.
And 4th on this list is the bylaws. Staff has prepared a proposed amendment to the bylaws, Article 4, Section 4.2, which is redlined in your package. And the purpose of this is to clarify that any person acting in the place of an authorized officer must either be designated by the DASNY board or an authority officer of DASNY. This clarification was recommended by Karen Ellinger, who's our manager of internal control, to work in tandem with other controls that Karen is implementing internally to maintain and publish on the DASNY intranet the list of parties currently authorized to act for and bind DASNY in accordance with bylaws section 4.2. So In function, what that means is that if at the time a document is not going to be signed by an authorized officer, she's establishing a place where you have to go procedurally and check and make sure the person who is signing is on the approved list.
One question.
Yes.
This is a change was made, was it initiated because of something we discovered?
No, good question.
Reaction to something?
No, good question. It's to conform to our existing practice. And before the list was maintained in a binder with Debbie Drescher, and folks had to call up and find out, and we're trying to get more efficient and get things posted internally.
Any further discussion?
Michael, this is the only change proposed.
That is the only change proposed, yes, sir.
Okay, next.
So that will conclude the review of the 4 governance items. Next, we're going to...
Do those as a group?
We can do those as a
Why don't we
group.
do those as a group? Consensus is we're going to advance these changes, this review and changes to the board tomorrow.
That is correct.
Do we need a formal vote on that?
We can do one just to make sure we have it, yes.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Carried. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we take a look at 4 policies and procedures that require an annual review under state compliance law. The first is going to be the Code of Ethical Conduct for board members of the Dormitory Authority. Staff has conducted a review of the Code of Ethical Conduct and is recommending no changes to this document at this time, and we defer this to discussion among the committee members.
Members of the committee have any questions about the Code of Ethics as they understand it? And kind of outlined in this annual document, which I think was last updated quite a few years, several years ago.
March
17.
Yep,
2
that
years
is
ago.
correct.
So there's no need, nobody has any.
No proposed changes here,
for
Mr.
proposed
Chairman.
changes,
No.
all right? Consensus, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda is the whistleblower protection policy and procedure. We did receive some comments on this from board members as well as staff. I should note that as well. And I'll walk you through the changes that are highlighted in the red line here. Everything that's listed here is in the nature of a conforming change. And the first item that we try to address as clearly as possible is the change in from the Internal Affairs Unit, which is now known as the Office of Professional Integrity. That change was implemented within the last 12 months since our last review. And so throughout the document, that has changed. And one change that was recommended was that the whistleblower hotline be monitored directly by the director of the Office of Professional Integrity, who's Tara Miner, who we all met and heard from at a recent board meeting. So that's a change with the realignment of that unit that folks felt comfortable with, and we think that's a positive change. The rest of the changes to the first paragraph of the policy statement are truly conforming changes, because we noticed when we looked at the definition of whistleblower, which is a very broad definition consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. It includes any member, officer, employee, and even a consultant or contractor of DASNY. That language was not carried forward to our policy statement, so we included that concept up in the top. And then at the very end of our whistleblower policy, it's read like this. As long as I've been here, the last 6 years, believe it or not, I just passed 6 years, there's a very clear statement that other rights are not affected. So we instead of that appearing at the end, we put it at the policy up at the top. So you have truly conforming changes in that regard. And those are the changes that came out of staff's review this year and the feedback that we received.
Further questions?
Mike, I did have one question, and it's in C, after I went through it yesterday. It's not a question, it's just a comment. The word adverse in the first line could be read to modify harassment or not? I'm just not clear on that. I see that there's a comma there. There is no such thing as, all harassment I assume is adverse. And I just wondered, might there be a better way to say that?
Well, since personnel action is a
Word of art.
a defined term
Right.
in the policy, we could remove the word adverse. That would be easy to do.
Then I would suggest that we do that.
Thank you.
Mike, so the changes in the procedure are all conforming?
That's correct. We have not modified the procedure in any substantive way, but we have added the feature that the whistleblower hotline, which is a change from the internal affairs hotline in the prior version, be monitored directly by the director of the Office of Professional Integrity, meaning that Tara will either answer the call live as it comes in if she happens to be there, it'll ring to her desk, or she'll be the one monitoring any messages that are left.
So they're, when you say they're conforming changes, conforming to what?
Basically, the language of our own policy. So, as I mentioned, the word definition of whistleblower has not changed at all, and so we're taking the concepts that were in that and making sure they're reiterated and restated in our policy statement. And the notion at the bottom of the policy statement that the alternatives and procedures set forth herein are in addition to existing rights, that notion already exists at the bottom of our existing policy under the section titled Other Rights Not Affected. So we have a complete policy statement that sets forth the policy in the front to match the wording of what's below in the body of the document.
Okay. And then the other changes in A and B?
Yes. Again, conforming changes. Persons can and do report information orally and in writing. When handling whistleblower issues, you can't violate your own policy procedure. You also can't violate any other state or federal law. In handling the review of a whistleblower claim, there is currently conducted, once the claim comes in, it's reviewed and investigated. So we're saying what we're doing there.
Okay, so when you say conforming to what we're actually doing.
To our practice.
Okay, so
Yes.
bringing the written policy in conformity with
Yes,
the...
I should.
Understood. Okay.
Yep.
I thought there was some other writing we were conforming to.
No, you are correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just as a practical matter, one of the designated individuals who receives a complaint will perform a preliminary investigation?
That is correct. That's under our current wording under B. And what happens in practice is that it does get referred eventually. It makes it to me and Tara, who's part of my unit in counsel's office, and we would, in theory, have that collaboration at that point in time to establish the investigation plan. But someone has to, when the complaint comes in, someone has to make the determination that this could be a whistleblower item, and it's not just a run-of-the-mill personnel issue, for example.
Mike, one question. If we're taking adverse out of paragraph C under the
It should
procedure,
also come out of paragraph
there-
A.
A as well?
Yes, it should. It's the last but third line, or fourth line.
Got it?
First personnel action, at the end of that line.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? this one has some extensive changes, maybe we should deal with this one as a separate resolution.
Go right ahead.
Do I hear a resolution to forward these changes to the authority tomorrow?
I'll second it.
Second. All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passed.
The third policy that's up for annual review is the policy regarding the payment of compensation and reimbursement to and time and attendance of executive management. Once again, staff has completed a review of this policy and is recommending no changes at this time, and we defer to the committee for further discussion and comment.
Is there any discussion?
No, sir, not here.
All right.
And the final item on our agenda policy-wise for review is are the guidelines pertaining to the disposition of certain property. Staff has completed a review of the guidelines and is proposing no changes to this document. I'd like to note that the guidelines are, in addition to being an annual review requirement, they do require approval by the board and then a filing with the state comptroller on or before March 31st of each year, and we will address that following tomorrow's meeting.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Then, does that do it? So
That concludes my review.
we've approved two, we need another resolution to approve the other two that we had consensus.
The first one?
This one and the management compensation.
Yeah, okay.
Those
Yes,
two, we didn't, so we need a motion on that to advance to the board.
we do.
All right? All
Second.
those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Passed. So I think.
And I'll include code of conduct in that as well, because we made no changes to that as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So there was actually 3 in that
Okay.
bucket.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That gets us to the next agenda.
Annual board self-evaluation. I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I would recommend that we go into executive session to discuss all the stuff that we go out. Particular corporations proposed pending or current litigation in the employment history of particular individual persons or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of particular persons. That is a motion. Second.
Second.
You? All right, so we're going to go into executive session, so it'll be on board members.
I'm just sort of wondering.
All right, the governance committee has just come out of a thorough discussion of the annual performance review of the board. And we'll have a report tomorrow. We took no action. So staff, do I have a motion to adjourn the governance committee?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Now call to order. There are two subsidiary corporations.
Just to end this one first.
Oh, we got to end this one.